Say hello to a new friend on an old road. Take a 2-lane trip of memories into mysteries unknown. Come along for the ride. Jim Hinckley's America. Jim Hinckley's America.
Hey, good morning, my friends. We've got Jonathan Bullington with us in the studio today from the Chicago Tribune. We're going to be talking about his recent adventure on Route 66. It's always great to see a different perspective. And John's got a kind of an interesting history that'll lend itself well to getting a different perspective on the most famous highway in America. Jonathan, how are you this beautiful morning?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, you know me. I'd have to be dead a week for it to get better than this. Hey, thank you so very much for taking time from your schedule to do this. I greatly appreciate it.
Happy to do it.
So, gosh, Jonathan, I got to talk to you a little bit when you were here in Kingman, and I followed your exploits there in the Chicago Tribune. And, well, what did you think? Was it what you thought it would be?
In some ways, yes, and in some ways, no. I think it was, to an extent, yes, it was what I had envisioned. But nothing can fully prepare you for what that's like. This epic road trip, 2,400 plus miles, and the people we met, the places we got to see. It lived up to my expectations for sure.
It's you can watch all the Rick Steves or all the videos you want, read all the travel books you want, and it doesn't matter what trip, even if it's to another country like New Orleans. It's got to be experienced.
Absolutely.
And it's because it's the people, it's the interactions with the people that really make these adventures, and Route 66 is no different.
Absolutely. Yeah, couldn't agree more.
Were your stories, if I may ask, were they pretty well received at Chicago Tribune? Did you get a lot of response?
Yeah, I think people were really, really throughout. I don't know if you remember, but even before we left, I wrote sort of a preview article, kind of letting people know that we were doing this. And we had asked in that preview, we really wanted to hear from readers, and asked them, what does Route 66 mean to you? What are some of your favorite stops? If you've done a portion of it or all of it, what have been some of your favorite stops along the way? And my inbox was flooded with people sharing their memories, talking about family trips they took when they were younger, or trips they took their families on, places that they remembered, some that aren't there anymore, some that still are. And yeah, a lot of people had really nice things to say about the stories. The dispatches that Jason and I, the photographer Jason Wamskins, that he and I produced along the way. So it was really great. I mean, as you know, Jim, people are really passionate about Route 66, understandably so. And so it was really interesting to get to see all of that.
As I say, I say this often, even when I'm only talking to myself, but I'm just amazed. First of all, it's a road. And second of all, officially, it doesn't even exist. And yet somehow this highway has become it's just a phenomenon. It's got an international fan club. It's got such a passionate, devoted community. It's just really hard to find words to describe what Route 66 has become,
Sure.
what it's evolved into.
Yeah, absolutely. I was really, you talking about your earlier question about expectations. People had told me, oh, a lot of international travelers a lot of folks from overseas, other countries will come to the United States specifically to travel Route 66. And so I expected to encounter some. I was surprised. I had a list somewhere. I was actually looking for it this morning before um, I jumped on here, but I couldn't find it. But I started keeping track of the countries of the folks that I had met in the 3 weeks that we took to travel the road, and it was, I don't know, maybe a dozen or so
Yeah.
countries of folks that I mean, there was, geez, a couple from just at the Hackberry General Store. There was a couple from France, two people from Valencia, Spain, and oh boy, there was somebody from Austria and the Ukraine. And this was in the span of, I don't know, an hour that we were at the general store waiting out a rainstorm. So you can imagine if we had just sat there all day, how many more countries would we have encountered?
Yeah.
It was fascinating.
Well, and like I say, even though we've got, and I don't mean this in a political stand, we try to avoid that here, but we've experienced a pretty sizable downturn in international tourism this year. And
Yeah.
it's still this highway is still a destination. Last week, I had dinner with Wolfgang and Anya of the German Route 66 Association here in Kingman. Tonight, I'm having a visit and a small tour with Roberto Rossi, a Italian travel journalist that's leading a small group along Route 66. Next week, I've got some dear friends coming in from Germany that'll be spending a few days on Route 66 in Arizona. A couple of years back, I was privileged to speak at the international or the European Route 66 Festival in Zlin, Czechia. And it's just really mind boggling.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I didn't, I guess, you know, thinking back to your earlier question, like, I didn't fully understand or appreciate how big the movie Cars is. So
Yes.
I never watched Cars until before we left on the trip. I thought, oh, I should probably watch this. Um, and I didn't. I don't have kids or anything, so I guess I didn't fully grasp the importance of this film. But I'm thinking about at the very end of our trip, the next morning when we got back to Chicago. I don't know, 5, 6 at night, and I had really wanted to find someone who was just about to start, because as you know, most people go start in Chicago and they go west to California. We did it in reverse, so to speak. We started in LA and went back to Chicago. So the next morning, I went out to where the road begins there at Michigan Avenue in Jackson, or I should say Adams, and the photographer Jason, he was over at this restaurant Lou Mitchell's, which, as you
Mm.
know, is kind of like an unofficial starting point. People often will go there, have breakfast before they start out. And Jason, so we were kind of camped out in these two spots trying to find someone about to start the trip. And Jason texts me and says, "Hey, I found somebody." And so I walked over there, and it was two Italian women. They'd been friends for a while. They were in their 20s, and they were just finishing breakfast. They were about to go pick up their rental car, and I think they were doing 2 weeks, I want to say, heading out on Route 66. And I asked them why. What is it about Route 66 that appealed to you, that you wanted to take this road trip? And one of them had said the movie Cars. And several people had talked about the movie Cars, particularly overseas. They said, "Oh, I saw that movie and I really wanted to come do this." So I had no idea that it had such a draw and appeal to it.
Well, you've got to be about my age, right around 70, to have a real connection to Route 66 when it was Route 66.
Mm-hmm.
The movie Cars not only introduced a whole new generation uh, to cars, and I'm seeing people on the road now that are in their 20s and things that they became fascinated with Route 66 because of watching that movie as a
Mm-hmm.
child. And then I was really surprised. Within the first 24 months after Cars was released, we had a tsunami of Chinese travelers on Route 66 that were brought here by that movie. Quite a phenomenon.
For sure.
I find, I don't know if you encountered this, but we've done such a good job of selling Route 66 as small town America that a lot of the cities have gotten short shift on this. Crime, traffic, real and magnified, perceived. So I think cities really get a short shift when it comes to Route 66 tourism. And it's really a shame because cities like Chicago, Los Angeles, St. Louis, they're such dynamic, fascinating cities, even just along the Route 66 corridor.
Yeah, for sure. I did. There was a sort of there was this idea that had been vocalized to me a few times along the way as I would stop and meet people and have conversations with them. And they would give me some variation of this statement. They'd say, "Oh, I love Route 66 because you get to see the real America. You get out of this big cities and you get to see the real America." And they would say that a lot, specifically the phrase "real America," and that to them was equated with getting out of cities.
Mm-hmm.
And it was interesting to me because I thought, well, I'm a Chicago Tribune reporter. I live in Chicago. I am from this area. I grew up in a suburb just south of the city. And I never thought of myself or my city as not being a part of the real America. And
Yes.
I thought like, well, this is interesting that the way you're viewing this is that cities are not real America. And I thought that was kind of fascinating to me, this idea that we're defining what the quote unquote real America is. And it doesn't apparently include these big cities, but you're right. I mean, I really enjoyed, obviously I love Chicago and I've been to LA a few times and I think that's a really interesting city, of course. Like Tulsa, I really enjoyed Tulsa. I'd never been to Tulsa before and I found Tulsa to be fascinating. Albuquerque was really interesting. St. Louis, of course. So yeah, these cities that you encounter along Route 66 are really something. And I hope that anyone who does take Route 66 doesn't bypass those and gives those the amount of time that they would give any other stop on Route 66.
Yeah, I agree. It's really kind of interesting. Like, say, we've sold Route 66 as this Norman Rockwell kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And we forget somehow that the cities, not only, yes, they are part of the United States, just like New Mexico. You don't need a passport to cross New Mexico, by the way. The cities have so much to offer. In Chicago, Greektown, as just an example, It comes to mind. Albuquerque, the diversity in Albuquerque. You have a 200 plus year history of dynamic culture, Native American, Spanish American, Mexican, all intertwined there. That makes for an incredible experience. And the greater metro Los Angeles area. Anybody who follows me and knows me well knows that I have trouble in any town with more than 3 stoplights. I get claustrophobic. But if you take it in bite-sized chunks, these cities have so much to offer. And as far as crime, things of that nature, that's just the nature of life. That's the way it is. A little common sense goes a long ways. Mm-hmm. And I hope to encourage people. And tied in with this, Jonathan, is a lot of the cities, they don't really market their connection with Route 66.
Yeah, I noticed that for sure. I mean, some, I think, as you know, some do better than others. I think we talked about this when Tulsa, right, is a great, I think, example of a city that has really embraced Route 66, and you can see and feel Route 66 when you're there in Tulsa. I've been told that Chicago isn't as apparent. I do know that the folks at the Illinois Tourism and some of these tourism and convention bureaus in our state really do work very hard and embrace the road. And, I get it. I think large cities, certainly they have a lot of things on their plates and can't get to everything. But yeah.
It's such low hanging fruit, though. When you're
Mhm.
trying to, tourism is such a big component of economic development.
Yeah.
And for Tulsa is not just Tulsa. The awakening is relatively recent, and they have become the poster child for how cities can do this, revitalize entire derelict districts by capitalizing on the romanticism of Route 66. Entire corridors of your city that are, for lack of a better words, apocalyptic, can be transformed. So that's another reason I'm really surprised that cities don't do more, especially with the centennial coming up.
Yeah, absolutely.
So much of the Route 66 thing is nostalgia driven, and that takes on a whole different aspects and facets. There's so many old things being revived for a new generation. The S&H Green Stamp program is being revitalized for a new generation. Route 66. I'm surprised by the younger generations that are getting involved with the road, that are traveling the road, that are doing things on the road. Young people that are opening businesses and restaurants and linking this to, older projects. It's really kind of interesting. It's an interesting dynamic.
Yeah, I agree.
Had you ever been out in this part of the country, really exploring this much in the
No.
Southwest?
No, I mean, with the exception of specifically when you talk about the Southwest, no. I've been to Phoenix a couple of times and like the Grand Canyon and Sedona. This was my first time in a lot of these places. I'd never been to New Mexico before. I'd never been to Texas. I'd never been to Oklahoma. So yeah, a lot of those 2,400 plus miles were all very new to me.
I think of all the states, New Mexico is, and I'm not prejudicial by any stretch. Route 66 is a linear community, but I'm really partial to New Mexico. The landscapes, the towns, the people. There's something really, truly unique about traveling through New Mexico on the Route 66 corridor.
Yeah, people have asked me. Obviously, when I got back, I've had a lot of questions like, "What was your favorite part?" And I think the Southwest stretch through Arizona and New Mexico was my favorite. And I don't know, part of that I think is because it was so new that I'd never really seen that before, or that landscape, which changes. So really the Arizona through New Mexico, Jason and I were talking about this in the car one day, that we were counting the different kind of variations of landscapes that we were seeing just in that stretch. And it would change, by the day. It was really interesting and beautiful. My personal favorite part was the stretch of road right in Arizona the Sidewinder in those mountains, and that was my personal favorite. I don't think I would have answered that if like it was dark out or if the weather was bad. I may have had a different feeling about that, but we were blessed with great weather, and that was just, I think I wrote it in the dispatch. I said, this has to be one of the most scenic stretches of road you could find anywhere in the United States. And I loved every bit of that. And a lot of that portion in Arizona, New Mexico, was really fascinating to me. I just enjoyed it immensely. And I was kind of glad that we did it in reverse. I also wonder, had we started in Chicago, by the time we're getting to New Mexico and Arizona, we're getting to the end of our trip. Would we have been kind of tired and fried from the tremendous amount of work that went into doing this and writing and producing all these stories that we did for the paper? Would we have enjoyed it as much if we hadn't been fresh at the start of the journey? I don't know, but I'm glad we did it the way we did. We got to see that early and with fresh eyes.
Yeah, you have. I think no matter how much enthusiasm and excitement goes into any trip, by the time you're getting towards the end of it, you're just tired. You're just mentally tired and tired.
And also, this was, again, I think for some people who are taking this drive, they're doing it. It's a vacation. It's an adventure for them, and it was an adventure for us for sure. But this was, make no mistake, this was a work trip. We were working the whole time, so we had very long days and nights, and we're trying to, we had planned some of the trip, but you can't really plan all of it, and we didn't have as much time leading into it to plan everything. So we were really kind of doing this on the fly. At one point, Jason and I sat down at a breakfast place this may have been somewhere in the Panhandle, I can't really remember now. And Jason had printed out like paper maps, paper calendars. And we were sitting at this table trying to like sketch out the remaining like week and a half of our trip on a paper calendar. So it was exhausting by the end of it, and a lot of work to pull off. So that certainly contributed to it. So again, another reason why I'm glad we decided to go east, to see all of that on the front end.
Well, see, that's just those being tired, not getting a chance to see certain things, having a scheduled deadlines, got to get back to work. Well, it's just an excuse to do it again. And the trip will be different next time because the road just continues state of evolution. That stretch that you mentioned, the Sidewinder there in western Arizona, that pre-1952 alignment through the Black Mountains, they just started marketing that as the Arizona Sidewinder. But for me, that's personal. That's where I learned to drive, learned to ride a bicycle. But it is one of the most beautiful sections. I don't think a one-eyed blind man can take a bad photograph out there. It's pretty spectacular.
Yeah, Jason certainly had an embarrassment of riches to photograph on that stretch. It was really something.
Yeah, I just I enjoy seeing people's reactions. I had a fellow on the program back in April, an interesting young man named Ryan Thiebold. He has a business in New Hampshire, Tebow Barnes. He specializes in Model A's and Model T's. And he had never been out west before. And so during COVID, he was out of work at the time. He hadn't started his garage. So he decided to take a Route 66 trip in an original 1929 Ford Model A. And he made video of driving his Model A through that stretch of mountains. And listening to his reaction was quite entertaining. Entertaining.
That's very cool.
Yeah, I like this. I like to hear what people find on Route 66 because it gives me a chance to see it through fresh eyes. Mm-hmm. By chance, did you get a chance to stop at Uranus Fudge Company in Missouri?
No, we didn't. We passed by it.
Yes.
But our Missouri trip, we had to get to. We really were pressed for time to get to St. Louis because there was something we wanted to do when we were in St. Louis that we had to get there in a hurry. So no, we passed by it, but we didn't get a chance to stop. And there were a lot of things like that we passed by, didn't get a chance to stop because we were setting up interviews with people. Occasionally we had to veer off the road to, like, we wrote this series of dispatches that people can see on the Chicago Tribune, but there are these other stories that we're still working on that are still to come out. And these are kind of like longer, deeper dives into certain topics. One of those stories I anticipate will talk about the El Pueblo motel in Flagstaff. And it's on Route 66 and its interesting significance. The guy who built that, Philip Johnston, is credited with kind of coming up with the idea for what would become the Navajo Code Talker program in World War II. And the El Pueblo, I think, is in danger of the wrecking ball. Jason and I, were lucky enough to meet what's believed to be the two surviving Navajo Code Talkers. And so we had to, that was one of these examples of, okay, we need to be in this place at this time, and we need to be at this place at this time, because we just cannot pass up the opportunity to meet these two gentlemen. And we were lucky enough to do that, and lucky enough to interview them. Fascinating interviews. I'm really excited for that story, because whenever I get a chance to write it, because these two guys have remarkable stories, and they're both in their late 90s, and they were both really sharp and had just great memories of things. And so again, that was a similar situation where you got to make these decisions about what do we do, what do we not do. So there were plenty of things that we unfortunately didn't get to see or had to pass by as we were going. 3 weeks sounds like a long time, but it goes by pretty quick.
Yeah, you can only put so many 30-hour days into a 24-hour period. There's not enough time. The Code Talkers, by the way, that motel, the Pueblo, El Pueblo, is currently for sale.
I saw.
And it is in really, really bad shape. I doubt if it'll be salvaged. The property is so valuable. Mm-hmm. The Code Talker program there, kind of an related side note. Some years ago, I was working in Winslow, Arizona, and I became good friends with a Code Talker. And this is 40 some years ago. And I kind of, again, this is not a political statement, but I just find it kind of an interesting snapshot of the way life used to be. And he mentioned to me, he says that he was always raised and taught that white people were crazy. And he says they took us from our parents, put us in a boarding school, forbid us to speak Navajo. Yeah. And then when the war started, people showed up and tried to pay us to speak Navajo.
Yeah, absolutely. And the same to the gentlemen that we met. Same statement. They both had gone to boarding schools where they would be punished if they spoke Navajo. And then to turn around these years later and be told, we need you and we need your language. Was really an interesting turn. And also the fact that they couldn't talk about it with anybody. It was years before they could tell even their families that they were doing this. I remember they both sort of told us, and their kids told us about the moment they learned what Dad did during the war. Like, wait, I'm sorry, what is this? Navajo who now? What are you doing? And it was really interesting that they kind of had to sit on this and keep it to themselves all those years.
The key to really, any travel is talking to people, listening, striking up conversations. But on Route 66, that takes on a new dynamic. I'm smart enough to realize the more I learn, the more I realize how little I know. And going back probably 15 years ago, I was in Weatherford, Oklahoma, at a coffee shop, and I got to talking to a fella. He was Comanche from down towards the Wichita Mountains. And through him, I'm really surprised to learn this, but there were Comanche Code Talkers during World War II. Mm-hmm. And they went ashore on D-Day, June 6th. I was another chapter totally overlooked. Another aspect of the Route 66, I mentioned Greektown in Chicago. Mm-hmm. Route 66 it's a stage, it's a microcosm for the entire Route 66, for the entire American experience, the Native American aspect, innovation, the story of immigrants, creating small family businesses, multi-generational, and starting out shining shoes at the train station in St. Louis, and ending up with something like the Ariston Cafe in Litchfield, Illinois. Mm-hmm. These are incredible stories.
for sure.
I look forward to reading your story about the code talkers. I look forward to that very much.
Yeah, it was really fast. And there's, that's going to be one of the stories that we're going to be I'm going to be working on here starting Monday. And, we have one that is going to take a look at sort of the relationship between Route 66 and the Native American tribes on whose land that road passes through. We spent a good amount of time kind of meeting and talking to people for that story. We're going to do something that looks at specifically the Black experience on Route 66. I know you helped introduce us to Candace Taylor, who wrote the Overground Railroad. We also were lucky enough, as we were going through Oklahoma, we made a stop in Luther, Oklahoma at the Threet Family Filling Station. And got to meet, we spent just a really wonderful morning and afternoon with members of the Threet family. Learned about their story and the filling station there, which, again, anyone who is listening to this and is thinking about going on Route 66, if at all possible, try to stop at the filling station. That story is really fascinating. What the family did there with that filling station and being kind of an oasis, a really much needed stop for Black motorists at a time when they were passing through sundown towns where it was very dangerous for them to be on the road. That was really interesting as well. And we're also going to probably have a story on the future of Route 66, because the reason we did this series is because we're on the eve of next year's centennial celebration. So 100 years of Route 66, what does the future look like?
Candace did a wonderful job on sparking a discussion about this subject. The African American experience, the Black experience on Route 66, and in America in general. And this is not a negative. In fact, most of these stories, you mentioned the station there, the Threat family in Luther, Oklahoma, that is an inspirational story. It's an inspirational tale. The Greek immigrants that Nick Adam, his father, started the Ariston Cafe. We had a couple of Greek brothers that started the Falcon restaurant in Winslow that's still here. A lot of these stories have been overlooked, to say the very least. And I'm really glad to hear that you're approaching this on the Native American, because the Native American story is probably one of the most overlooked chapters in Route 66 history at this time. It just is almost an unknown.
Yeah, absolutely. We got to spend some time with some members of some of the tribes that are along the road, talk to them about kind of what they're doing ahead of the centennial. But we stopped in plenty of the trading posts in the Southwest and talked to some of the longtime families, Native families that set up those shops. In the Painted Desert Inn, we met a couple that have been kind of making and selling jewelry and pottery there for Route 66 travelers, and that was really fascinating. That was a really interesting part of the trip, and again, another story that I'm really excited to write and for people to read when we get it together.
Well, the Hokie trading post, where they kind of exploited the Indian. In my files, I have a photo of a billboard that said 1 mile, stop, see live Indian. Yeah. They were exploited, things of that nature, but there's also along Route 66 the real deal. One of my favorites is the Richardson Trading Company in Gallup. The elderly gentleman that ran that just passed away a couple of years ago, but that's a one family owned authentic trading post from 1913. It opened. It's quite extraordinary, quite
Yeah,
extraordinary.
absolutely. But some of those trading posts, we'd stop and talk to them, and I am not to be doom and gloom here, but I am. I got the impression that times were tough for some of these trading posts. And
Yes.
speaking about the kind of future of Route 66, there were some folks that I met and talked to, and it was pretty clear to me that the future was very uncertain for them. They did
Yeah.
not know how much longer they could keep the doors open and keep things running. And it was a confluence of forces and reasons that we'll get into in the story about why they may not be able to keep the doors open, some of which we've touched on here today. But it was really interesting to hear that and to hear in their voices this very palpable sense of the unknown and worry about whether they were going to be around, how much longer they were going to be able to survive out there, which was really something.
Yeah, the road has always been an evolution. The Route 66 of 1930 was different from that of 1960. And it's, we've lost places. And we've got new ones like the Louis Keene down at the Uranus Fudge Company. The trading post, a lot of the small businesses on Route 66, and this is not just in the Route 66 community, but a lot of small business people have not adapted to the modern era. They have no functioning website, very limited social media post. And the primary reason they have been able to survive this long is they are on Route 66. Mm-hmm. There needs to be a little bit of a blending. The folks there at the Jackrabbit Trading Post in Joseph City, that opened in 1949. It's been one family since 61. They've done pretty well keeping that trading post alive because they've been able to blend the tradition with the modern era, having a website, a strong social media presence. So that's another factor in this. Mm-hmm. So you've got enough stories coming. Do you see a future? I mean, Route 66 playing a role in the future here of the country?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm still kind of thinking through that story, that broader story about the future of Route 66. And I don't know, I try to not take a short look at things, and certainly there are some turbulent waters now on the horizon that could be very challenging for a lot of the folks who live and work up and down that road. I don't know, 100 years, I have to believe that the road is going to continue to be a magnet that pulls people to it.
Nolan was asking if you met Harley Russell in Eric, Oklahoma.
No, we didn't get a chance to. I understand he has been, he and his shop were certainly on our radar, and I think a few of the folks who had responded to our question about, what are your favorite places on Route 66, that name came up. But no, we didn't get a chance. Oklahoma was pretty jam-packed for us between stopping at some tribes, spending time with the Threet family. And then we spent 2 days in Tulsa because, again, another one of these stories we're working on that'll come out in the Tribune is one of these stories that I think isn't always associated with Route 66. And it's this architect by the name of Bruce Goff, who, if you're in Tulsa, you can see several of his designs, including the church there, the Boston Avenue church, which is a Bruce Goff design building. And he is this really interesting architect. And people talk a lot about like kitsch and quirk in Route 66. Like these things are synonymous. And Bruce Goff is considered by some to be a very like quirky, kitschy architect. And so – another one of the stories we're going to tell is kind of a Route 66 story that you don't always think about when you think of the road, but Bruce Golf definitely has a footprint along the Oklahoma stretch there. And so I'm excited for that one as well. But again, these things kind of filled up the days, and it became hard for us to do everything in Oklahoma.
I look forward to that story as well. I was not familiar with Mr. Golf's.
His buildings are really interesting, and a really interesting guy, really interesting architect. And we spent, we were in Sapulpa. He has a house not far from Route 66 that he designed, that we met the owners and got a tour. And then his designs in Tulsa. We were lucky enough to get hooked up with some really great folks in Tulsa who showed us around some of his works. And again, a really interesting story. And he has a Chicago connection. His archive is currently at the Art Institute here in Chicago. And we're really looking forward to that story as well.
The key to all of this is, like, taking time to meet with people. You don't have to be a journalist to sit down and just start a conversation. Listen to people.
Absolutely. People were very friendly along the way. I mean, there were, with few exceptions, I've been a journalist for about 20 years now. And so I'm used to going up and starting conversations with strangers. And occasionally there's a bit of skepticism. I'm a member of the media. Some people have preconceived notions about what that means. And certainly I can understand that people can get a little nervous when a reporter asks questions, because you think, oh God, am I going to say something that's going to get twisted and misconstrued? But by and large, the folks that we met along Route 66 were very friendly and welcoming. And again, occasionally there were a couple of people who were a little apprehensive about talking to us, but by and large, everyone was very welcoming, very nice.
Yeah, you find that in most places, but Route 66 is truly an international and linear community. And the stories, when you get to talking to these people, I find that a lot of folks that take a Route 66 trip and take time to talk to people, they take that home with them, that experience, and they start talking to people in their community, be it New Orleans, New York, Paducah, wherever. They take that with them, and it becomes transformative. But there's so much inspiration on this road when you just talk to people who are starting businesses, people who have an idea, no matter how strange, how quirky. They have an idea, a dream, something they want to share, and there's a backstory. I just did a program a couple weeks ago with a young lady that she opened a bicycle rental in a refurbished 1939 service station along Route 66, and her backstory was what was really interesting. She ran a marijuana pot store in Amsterdam. Had a marketing agency in Las Vegas at one time, and had been a professional clown for a few years before she met this person. Before she set her sights on opening a bicycle museum and bicycle rental agency on Route 66. So there's some interesting things out there.
Yeah, she was one of two people who had professional clown on their resume that we met. That was another, to your first question about anything you didn't expect. I did not expect to meet so many people who were formerly clowns. That was a surprise to me.
And it's the people you meet traveling the road too, because this is the road of dreams. I have had encounters with French mimes that are trying to set stilt walking records. I've met Japanese people rollerblading the length of Route 66. Math professors who decided to try to walk Route 66. Yeah, it's just astounding. You've got quite a diverse background, I think, that really lent itself well to your trip, though. Oh. Not just as a journalist, but your background, New Orleans, and I think New Orleans would prepare a person for almost any kind of experience?
Oh, yeah. I was a reporter at the Times-Picayune in New Orleans for 5 years. And yeah, I mean, geez, I could take a whole nother podcast to talk to you about how fascinating New Orleans is as a place. My wife and I were lucky enough when we first moved there in 2014. We found an apartment in the French Quarter, which was just wonderful to experience that. Every day for like 2 years or so. I think we lived in the quarter. But yeah, I mean, New Orleans is just a fascinating place. I miss it tremendously.
Jonathan, thank you for taking time this morning
Glad to
from
do
your
it, Jim.
schedule and from your family. I really appreciate this, and I appreciate what you did with your series of stories. The photography was superb, and I'm really looking forward to following your stories in the Chicago Tribune and learning about your thoughts on the future of Route 66. I
Yeah,
think
thank you
that's
very much, Jim. I appreciate you having me, and thank you for all your help. Again, like before we set out, I tried to call people and ask their advice because I was coming into this really new and really green, and had to try to learn really fast and make connections really fast. And you were one of the guys who was so helpful in that. So thank you again.
oh, you bet it's a team effort. It just really is. And I look forward to seeing your stories, and I have a feeling we'll be hearing more from you on the road. Especially there's so much happening on Route 66 in Illinois, in your backyard, that I think we're going to be hearing a lot in the future on things you discover.
For sure. Yeah, we'll keep after it. And yeah, I'm really excited for the stories we have coming up in the Tribune. And I hope other people get a chance to check them out.
Jonathan, again, thank you so very much.
Appreciate you, Jim. See you around.
You take care, sir. Bye-bye.
Bye.
My friends, I hope you found that as inspirational as I did. It's always refreshing to see Route 66 through fresh eyes. You know, people ask me how long it takes to discover Route 66, explore Route 66, and I always tell people I don't know. I've only been doing this since 1959, and it just constantly changes. But it's just like seeing a sunset or anything. Going to the beach. If you do it every day, you still are in awe and you're still fascinated. But you do it with a child or somebody who's never seen it before, gives you a fresh perspective. So I'm grateful for Jonathan and his photographer, and I'm great. The stories they've been putting out have been fantastic, and I really like the approach that he took on this. I mentioned earlier in the program about some nostalgia projects, and S&H Green Stamps is one of those. I've got a blog post coming up about this revived brands from our childhood and our past. Not just S&H Green Stamps, but like Stuckies. And I know I'm not talking to younger folks here, but I think you're going to find this of interest. And I'll have this up soon on Jim Hinckley's America website. And I'll have some questions because I'm curious about a few things here. Before we get too long-winded, and if you have any questions or anything, please chime in and ask. Next week on Coffee with Jim, we're going to have some fun. We're going to be talking with Roy Wayne Pickrell at I don't even know how exactly to describe the Pink Elephant Antique Mall in Livingston, Illinois. It's in a giant 1929 high school. But what he's created here, we've got an upcoming UFO and alien festival. He has a huge collection of the historic fiberglass advertising giants, a time capsule Twisty's Diner, a fudge factory, 1950s style candy store, all wrapped around an antique mall. This is going to be a little bit different for you, to say the very least. And I want to throw this out too. The fiberglass giants come in different sizes. Some of you may think of them as the muffler men. This will be a great introduction. We're going to be talking in September the gentleman behind Joel Baker behind the American Giants Museum up the road in Atlanta, Illinois. But I think we're going to really have some fun next week. We'll talk to Mr. Pickerel about his Route 66 centennial plans at the Pink Elephant Antique Mall in Livingston, Illinois, along Route 66. And the following week, I really want to encourage you to put September 7th on your calendar. Invite your friends if they have a business or thinking about a business on Route 66, or they want ideas about how they can breathe life into their community using Route 66 tourism as a catalyst. We're going to have as a very special guest, Reese Martin. He's not only the president of the Oklahoma Route 66 Association, he's also the manager for the Route 66 Preservation Initiative with the National Trust for Historic Preservation. And he and his wife, Samantha, are dynamos in the Route 66 community. And we talk often about how do we bring Route 66 to a younger generation. Well, Reese and his wife, to me, they're youngsters. Let's just say they're a lot younger than I am. And Samantha, his wife, has come up with some innovative programs to get families and children on the road. These two are a wellspring of inspiration. So I really want to encourage you on September 7th, join us, invite your friends. And for those of you who are a little bit older, bring a pencil and paper, take some notes. We're going to learn about grants. And you heard about Tulsa today. Reese and his wife have played a big part in this transformation of Tulsa. So I think you're going to find a lot of inspiration in that. I've got to give a shout out to some folks that help make this program possible. I want to give a shout out to the folks who support us through Patreon. Every dollar helps. A lot of these programs, like educational programs, things of that nature, they're not feasible, economically feasible, even though I would like to do them. They're just not feasible without some sort of help. We got some great sponsors too, and some milestones to share with you. Let's start in Missouri. The Wagon Wheel Motel is celebrating its 90th anniversary real soon here. This is not the oldest motel on Route 66, but it's the oldest continuously operated motel on Route 66. Connie Eccles done a beautiful job. This place was an endangered property some years ago, and they've managed to almost perfectly maintain its historic integrity, but blend it with the modern amenities the traveler wants. And she's been talking about selling the property for a while. It's officially up for sale. You can find information on the Jim Hinckley's America Facebook page, and I'll have it up on the Jim Hinckley's America website very soon. And Connie has had some serious health issues this last couple of months. And so if you get a chance, drop her a note or a card, let her know she's appreciated at the Route 66 communities thinking about her. And if you're thinking about a career change, something a little more rewarding, well, opportunity is knocking in Cuba, Missouri. Wagon Wheel Motels for sale. Speaking of properties for sale, David Brenner is looking at a career change again. He is the owner of the Roadrunner Lodge in Tucumcari, New Mexico, and he's listed the property for sale. And this is another example of transforming a building, transforming a derelict property, using Route 66 tourism as a catalyst for economic development. I don't mean to be crude, please forgive me, but I went through and looked at the Roadrunner before David bought it. I wouldn't have peed on the building if it was on fire. It was bad. And he has transformed that into a living, breathing 1960s time capsule that is a destination. As a bonus, the Roadrunner Lodge is built about 64. Right next door, there's an adjoining property that's a 1940s motel. It's in good shape. David's done some work on it, but it's a blank canvas for someone. So you're actually getting 2 properties if you buy the Roadrunner Lodge. And if you're not buying either one of these motels, at least stop. It'll enhance your Route 66 adventure. And Angela Moreland in McLean, Texas, I want to give a shout out to the Cactus Inn Motel right next door to the delightful Red River Steakhouse. Angela's done a great job with that 1950s gym. And had some really interesting conversations this last week with Vicki Ashcraft at the Enchanted Trails Trading Post and RV Park along Route 66 west of Albuquerque. Vicki is just tireless on her work with Route 66, the Route 66 Association in New Mexico, and now the New Mexico Route 66 Centennial Alliance. She shares my passion for telling people where to go, so stop in, talk to her, get some ideas, travel tips. Grab a few photos with her display of vintage travel trailers and Hudsons. Check out the old Trading Post and gift shop. And if you've got an RV, it's a place to stay. Modern, up-to-date RV park with stunning views. Absolutely wonderful. Worried about planning a Route 66 trip? Don't know how to go about it? Don't want to worry about it? I got 3 suggestions for you. And we're very, very picky on who we suggest. Austin Coop, Two-Lane America. First-class Route 66 trip, but he also offers some other interesting Great American experiences on the road. One is through Auto Country, stopping at automotive museums like the Gilmore Museum, the Auburn Cord Duesenberg Museum, the Henry Ford Museum. Check out Two-Lane America. Our good friends Stephen and Chantel at Route Trip USA. They create custom holiday experiences for road trip adventures in the U.S. and Canada. They're really great. And my good friend Sam Murray with Gilligan's Route 66 Tour, he not only offers a guided driving caravan tour, he's got an innovative self-drive tour where you can take the road yourself, everything's done, and he's created a program where it's almost like having a tour guide in the car with you as you travel. And then he's also got a tour through the heartland along the Mississippi River from Minneapolis to New Orleans, a great driving adventure. All places I can really highly recommend. And one more, I want to give a shout out to Dina Nelson, State Farm Insurance here in Kingman, Arizona. She's our latest sponsor. And she's not just a sponsor and a good friend, but, we've been using her for all of our insurance needs for at least 40 years. So if you need insurance, give Dina Nelson a holler. Hey, do we have any questions? Anything I can answer for you before we mosey on to other things? I want to thank everybody who joined us today. Professor Nolan Stoltz. I'm sure he's getting close to finishing his Route 66 composition. We're excited about that. Margaret's with us this morning from Motor Cities and the Ransom E. Olds Museum, East Lansing, Michigan. And I see we have Carl with us today from S&H Green Stamps. Denny, it's always great to see you, my friend. Denny has inspired more than one road trip or two, and I have a few of his books sitting almost in arm's length. So, Denny, I want to thank you for joining us. Invite your friends. We'll get this posted up today. We'll share it on Spotify and other platforms. I have an embedded player. I offer website designers. And currently it's on the B.News, which is the largest tri-state media network in the Colorado River Valley. Of course, Jim Hinckley's America, Kingman Tours, some other websites. So if you're a website designer and you want to help build this community or share some of these stories with your people, just drop me a note and we'll make that happen. I think we got you pretty much caught up on everything. I hope everyone has a delightful week and closing in on the end of summer, but that's okay too. Fall's a good season. My friends, until we meet again, I will bid you adios. And, well, let's wrap this thing up. What do you say with some music from my good friends in Nashville, and Joe and Woody and the boys there at the Road Crew. Road Crew 66.
Say hello to a new friend on an old road. Take a two-lane trip of memories into mysteries unknown. Come along for the ride. Jim Hinckley's America. Jim Hinckley's America.